After a breakout 2024-2025 season, is Cade Cunningham a top 10 overall player in the NBA? I think I got the right answer, but let's talk about it right here on Top Title Detroit. Let's go.
Perfect.
What's good? Welcome to Top Title Detroit. I am Eric Vincent, your host and Detroit Pistons beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate your support. Make sure you help us grow the channel. Make sure you please like the video and subscribe to the channel as well. We're getting closer to 300 subscribers, and I would love to lock in that benchmark just before the summer gets here. So please tell a friend to tap in with us here at Top Title Detroit. It would really mean a lot to me. I would really appreciate it. Let's get into the conversation, man. I'm really excited about this one, and I think it's very appropriate at this given moment. Shout out to The Ringer. They just came out with an NBA Top 100 list, which you know are always controversial and always have some questions. So let's start digging into some questions, shall we? I actually kind of like this list a little bit. I think it came out pretty accurate for the most part, but Cade Cunningham's name was pretty interesting in his placement. So out of all the numbers of 100, Cade actually finished at 16. I don't think that's too terrible, but let's talk about who's in front of him and who's below him as well, just to get you a little bit of a barometer of where he's at. So number one, they have Jokic, 2 SGA, 3 Giannis, 4 is Luka, 5 is Steph Curry, 6 Ant Edwards, 7 Tyrese Halliburton, 8 Donovan Mitchell, 9 is Jalen Brunson, 10 is Jason Tatum, Victor Wembanyama is at number 11, LeBron at 12, 13 for Anthony Davis, 14 for Kevin Durant, 15 for Kawhi Leonard, Cade Cunningham at 16, Evan Mobley 17, Karl Anthony Towns 18, Devin Booker 19, and Jalen Williams is in at 20. That's a very, very interesting 20 out of the list. Now, before we get into Cade, there's also one more Piston that made the list. Shout out to Jalen Duren, who came in at number 98, if I'm not mistaken. You know, had a really good second half of the season and really showed that he can be a foundation piece for the Pistons. But we'll talk about Duren a little bit later. Cade at number 16. I believe of all of the lists that Cade Cunningham has been on, we've seen him on the ESPN list before the season started at number 67. Guys like Kobe White and Alex Caruso and KCP were ranked ahead of Cade Cunningham prior to the season at 67. I don't really need to peel into that anymore. We all know how crazy and asinine that is. But Cade at this point has garnered a lot more respect from the NBA, from the media, from his contemporaries, and I think 16 is a pretty good number for him. Do I necessarily agree with the number? No, I don't. I think he could be a little bit higher. And honestly, to kind of answer the question of the title of the video, I think Cade Cunningham has a legitimate case, all bias aside, of being mentioned and labeled as a top 10 player. I think he kind of established it this year, and I don't really think that's a hot take or too crazy to say. Now, Cade Cunningham was absolutely fantastic this year. A top 10 scorer, averaging 26 a game. I think he was 4th in assists and playmaking, averaging just over 9. A very good rebounding year, very good defensive year. And out of everybody else that's on the list, if you look at each name, Cade Cunningham is the only person in that top 20 list that doesn't have another star on his roster. Everybody else does. Everybody else on this list that's from 1 to 20 has another co-star that is working with them. Cade is the only one that was working with a roster that was a little bit brand new and didn't have the star power or the cohesive continuity that a lot of these other stars had the benefit of playing under. So to me, I would put Cade a little bit higher. Again, I don't necessarily have a problem with the list. I'm not going to dunk on it and go crazy, but I truly think Cade does have an argument to be within that top 10. If I had my own top 10 list, this is how mine would go. I would go the same with Jokic at 1. SGA is number 2. Giannis would be 3. Luka would be 4. Ant Edwards would be 5. Jason Tatum would go 6. I think he's kind of underrated a little bit still. Victor Wembanyama could be 7. I wouldn't be mad if people had him a little bit higher because he has been spectacular already. Jalen Brunson I would have at 8. Cade Cunningham I would put at 9. And then LeBron would round out my top 10 at number 10. I think Cade has done enough to kind of prove that based on the argument I just made. Cade had to face an enormous amount of double teams from opposing defenses this season, especially after Jaden Ivey's injury occurred earlier in January to start off the season, or to start off the year, excuse me. A lot of these other guys that you look at, SGA, he's got a co-star in Jalen Williams. Jokic has Jamal Murray and a pretty consistent roster. I mean, outside of the coaching staff, which kind of shook up at the end of the season. Giannis had Dame Lillard. Luka played with LeBron. Ant Edwards had Rudy Gobert. Jason Tatum has a star cast with Jaylen Brown and a lot of other players on Boston. Wemby has De'Aaron Fox, had tutelage of Chris Paul, the coaching excellence of Greg Popovich in his ear. Brunson had Cat next to him. He had Mikal Bridges next to him. OG Anunoby next to him. Plenty of star power on that team. And LeBron, as we just mentioned, he already has Luka as well. And prior to that, was also playing with Anthony Davis. Even if you keep going past that and all the other names I was mentioning before, Tyrese Halliburton playing with Pascal Siakam, Donovan Mitchell playing with 3 other stars, and that came out this year with Garland, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. So it's 4 All-Stars on the roster for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Steph Curry playing with Draymond Green and then getting Jimmy Butler in the middle of the season. I don't know, man. I think it's kind of obvious that if there's a definition of doing more with less, if you were to look that up in the dictionary or Google that right now, you would see Cade Cunningham's name pop up. And I think that should mean something. And I think the voters would too. That's one of the go-to arguments that they use for Nikola Jokic over the past few seasons in his MVP cases, especially the year where he was a 6th seed in Denver and they still gave him the MVP. So it's not crazy to think that Cade couldn't be higher. While he's at 16, I think he has an argument to be, like I said, as high as the top 10. And you could make the same argument with a lot of these other guys too. I don't think any of these names are just egregious in terms of what their number placement is. Actually, that's not true. I take that back. Steph Curry's not a top 5 player anymore. I think we got to kill that. Steph Curry's not the 5th best basketball player in the NBA. He's just not, bro. I'm sorry. Like, Golden State was struggling to start the season, and they didn't really turn things around until Jimmy showed up. Like, Steph at one point wasn't even top 20 in scoring. He finished off top 17 or number 17 within the top 20 in the NBA. But outside of that, what else is he doing better than a lot of these other guys? A lot of these other guys are scoring better than him. And Edwards had a better scoring year. Tyrese Halliburton didn't score better than him, but he was an elite level playmaker. Donovan Mitchell averaged more, if I'm not mistaken. Jalen Brunson averaged more. Cade averaged more. LeBron averaged just a little bit less, if I'm not mistaken, but also had 8 assists and 7 rebounds to his name. What does Steph do that would make him a top 5 player at this point? I feel like people are really holding on to this legacy argument for some of these names, and I think Steph is one of the prime names in this conversation. Even look at the All-NBA argument. He was not better than Cade Cunningham and a lot of other names that were below him in the All-NBA votes. So Steph finished 2nd All-NBA. Cade finished 3rd. Not really a fan of that. But again, a lot of these other names on this list, I think they kind of have an argument. Again, I would put Cade up a little bit higher than most of them, but knowing where he is and knowing where he's grown from and knowing that a lot of these names have also a pattern or a continued resume where they've been great for more than 1 year. Granted, I think Cade has been really good basically his entire career. Even through the Monty Williams struggling last season, he still was able to put up all-star caliber numbers at the length of a guy like Paolo Banchero. So I don't really think it's crazy to think that Cade, like, he didn't just come on this season and really turn it on after struggling or trying to like find himself. A lot of people tweeted that, like, especially during the playoffs, talking like Cade, oh, people sold their stock too soon on Cade, or oh, people weren't really believing in him. No, people just weren't paying attention. If you have been watching Piston basketball over the past few seasons during the Cade Cunningham era, he has been a promising player through the start of his career. Regardless of how many kind of players or stars have had to shuffle in and out of the roster, for 3 or 4 different coaching staffs that he's had to deal with, another front office that is now taken over under, for the Pistons regime. He's had to deal with a lot. And to still be able to be consistent enough and grow and take dramatic steps forward as a young player, I think that should mean something. To be able to take a team that was NBA all-time horrible just last season with a 28-game losing streak and finishing dead last in the NBA to now dragging that roster and a new roster with a lot of cast-off pieces next to them and bringing them up to a 6th seed in the NBA where you go up against the New York Knicks in the first round and push them to 6 games where you maybe also could have came out on top of that series if maybe some calls and some plays go a different direction. I don't know, man. I see something different with Cade Cunningham than maybe others are seeing. Again, we've seen it. The people know it. The people who've been watching Piston basketball know how great Cade Cunningham is. And again, it feels like the eyes are starting to open up now, but I feel like they still may be a little bit behind based on some of the names that are in front of him. Like even Kawhi Leonard. Like Kawhi Leonard did not have a better season than Cade Cunningham this year. He just didn't. And I love Kawhi. I think Kawhi is super underrated. It's very unfortunate the things that have happened in his career with his injuries and his health, but we're not going to sit here and act like Kawhi had a better year than Cade this season. He didn't. Like Cade averaged more points, was just as good of a defender, I would say, a way better playmaker, just as good of a rebounder. I don't know, man. I'm not really seeing the argument for a guy like Kawhi. Like a lot of these names that are in front of him, like Kawhi, AD, KD, LeBron, Steph Curry, like these guys come off as just legacy votes to me because there's not really much of a case. Like LeBron got beat twice by the Pistons and Cade outplayed him in both games. Anthony Davis, same thing. And he's been injured for a good chunk of the year as well anyway. Even after the injuries he's dealt with, even with the trades he's dealt with, like Cade was still consistent regardless of all the stuff that he had to deal with in terms of the turmoil with the roster, the injuries to the roster, the inexperience of the roster. Cade still found a way to be elite level in more than one area. Like that's how I look at a lot of these guys. Like if I want to put you as high as top 10 in the league, you have to be great or elite in more than one area. And you can make the case for Cade Cunningham that he was that on a scoring tip and as a playmaker. Now, granted, yes, you can look at his turnovers, you can look at some other things, but you can also look at the fact that he's dealing with more double teams than basically anybody else. Because I just watched Tyrese Halliburton against the Thunder. He's a fantastic player, and I love what he's doing for the Pacers, but he's not facing the same kind of attention that Cade is. He's not getting doubled the way that Cade is throughout the game. Now, I'm not talking about just in the fourth quarter where they think he's going to take over in clutch time. Throughout the game, Tyrese Halliburton and a lot of these other guys are not seeing the same kind of attention that Cade Cunningham is seeing. When Cade is the star of an inexperienced young team that's trying to turn around their image in a winning direction, they know on the scouting report, the very first thing is get the ball out of Cade Cunningham's hands. Let somebody else beat you. That's what these teams have shown you all season. And Cade, for the most part, in my opinion, has done a great job of answering that call and showing that he can respond to that. Now, he struggled a little bit maybe towards like later in the playoffs, fourth quarters. He looked like he was maybe kind of tired in some games and stretches where he was turning the ball over and not shooting super efficient in the fourth quarters. So you would think that maybe a little bit of help with an extra ball handler, maybe an extra Jaden Ivey, one more creator on that roster for the Pistons will be able to kind of bring a little bit of rest and a lack more of responsibility for Cade in comparison to the heliocentric basketball that we had to watch him play after Ivey's injury. But again, even with all of that adjustment, he still showed that he could do it. You're taking my second best player away from me? All right, I'm going to still ball out and do what I got to do. I didn't really see that from a lot of these other guys. Like I saw that from Ant Edwards. He turned it on the second half of the year. He was very consistent, as a scorer and then even grew as a playmaker as he saw a lot more double teams as well because they don't really have, the best offensive, package of players on the Minnesota Timberwolves roster, especially in stretches where Julius Randle was injured. But for a lot of these other guys, they're not getting the same kind of double teams and double attention. Like it's just not happening. So Cade's ability to still make things happen and put the Pistons in position to win basketball games, turn their franchise around, keep, putting his numbers up in more impressive fashion. I don't know, man. That sounds like a top 10 player to me. But again, this is one of the few lists I've seen throughout the league since Cade has come into the league that I'm able to accept to an extent. again, he's not in conversations with guys like Derek White or Scotty Barnes anymore. He's in a class of players and names where he should be respected and deserves. Like him, Evan Mobley, he's ranked above Karl Anthony Towns, above Devin Booker, above Jalen Williams. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, these are guys and names that I can accept and respect that he's at this point. Again, I'm not saying he's the best. He's not top 5, but is an argument within the top 10 acceptable or at least, worthy or considered about thinking about? I would think so. I still think he's better than Tyrese Halliburton at this point. I love Hallie. I think he's a really good player, but I feel like the clutch dramatics, while it's really noteworthy and cool to see and definitely fantastic for the Pacers, it doesn't necessarily make you a better player. Like, it makes you a more clutch player, but it doesn't make you a better overall player for the entire game, because being clutch only means in a couple different areas and at a certain couple points of the game. So, again, I love Halliburton. He's fantastic, but I personally don't think he's better than Cade Cunningham. I think if you put Cade on the Pacers right now, they would still be winning these basketball games right now. Like, Cade has never been able to play with a Siakam. He doesn't have another co-star to go with to kind of take a lot of that pressure off him that we see so often. And again, for a guy that's 23 years old, finally made his first All-Star team, his first All-NBA team, to me, should have had a little bit more respect in the most improved player conversation, even though they're kind of screwing up the meaning of that award. I still think he should have had a little bit more respect in the voting for it. And the way he's been able to put on and kind of show that he can be a winning player and a franchise leading winning player, I don't know, man. I say top 10. But that's just me. I would love to hear from you. Talk to me in the comments. Do you think Cade Cunningham is a top 10 player in the NBA right now? If he is, tell me what number he is. If he's not, tell me what number he is. I would love to hear from you. Whether you think Cade Cunningham is top 10 or not, I would love to hear your opinions. Make sure you hit me up in the comments. Again, please make sure you like the video. And please make sure you follow my work as well on clutchpoints.com. Enjoy the off-season mode, and we getting ready for the draft and a lot of the other off-season craziness that's coming up soon. And I'll be tapping in and being sure to report it all to you here on Top Title Detroit and on clutchpoints.com. You can also lock in with me on my social media at I am Eric Vincent. I'll be sure to tap in and follow you back if you give me a follow right now. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate your time. I'll see you again soon right here on Top Title Detroit. Peace.